I'm going to go through how you can use flashcards most effectively at home so that your child remembers the meanings of these new words in the long term and not just for the short term. Now, I'm using the Wordia illustrated vocabulary cards for this example, although the techniques in this video will work if you're making your own cards at home, but I thought I'd use these as they are nice and colourful and have the pictures, which will work as a memory aid. On day one, so you might want to do this on the Monday of the week, you just want to introduce the new word and plant the seeds for the definition. So don't expect memorization on this very first day. So here's a little pack of some of the Wordia cards that I put together earlier. So start by looking at the word there. Get your child to say it out loud. You might want to check the pronunciation by looking it up on the internet. If you go to an online dictionary, most of them will have the audio file of the pronunciation for you. Or if you have the Wordia cards and you go to the Quizlet file that accompanies these, then it will pronounce the words for you there as well. So, say the word first. Have a good look at the cover. So talk about what you see if maybe your child's heard this word before at all. Some of them, like strenuous, will relate to the word strain, so they might be able to figure out the meaning of this new word using prior knowledge and the picture. If not, don't worry, we're just going to turn it over and start looking at the definition. So, read the example sentence. If you're doing this with your own flashcards, then I would go online and look for an example sentence there. Wordhippo.com has some good child-friendly example sentences, or if you have a children's dictionary, some of those will have example sentences in them. So, now we've looked at the word, let's read the example sentence. So, the farmer was used to undertaking strenuous tasks like carrying heavy loads and digging up soil. Use the word there. Based on the example sentence, you might want to flick back and see if your child can figure out what the definition might be of this word. See if they can take a guess using the context, and then you're just going to check. So definition is there: requiring great effort or exertion. Maybe discuss if that was what they thought it was going to be, and again relate that back to the front of the card. So you can see here that this is requiring great effort because these are probably heavy loads. So that's what makes this a strenuous task. Now, if you've made your own flashcards at home, then there is nothing to stop you from doing a little doodle on the front. You don't have to be an artist, but you can make up your own version of this. So strenuous, add a little doodle for the picture, and that will work as a memory aid, and just the process of drawing the picture will be really good for memory as well. So, we've got the definition there. Make sure your child understands it. And for your first day, if there's etymology there, then I would look at that because that will help you to remember it. The synonyms, ignore on your first day. We don't want to overload your child. Once they've got a good grasp of what the word might mean, then you want to get them to say an example sentence themselves using this word. Just say it out loud, doesn't have to be written down. That's going to be all that you do with this one card for day one. If you think your child will be okay with taking on more, then you can cover another word or two on that first day. So just go through them in the same way. You're going to look at the front carefully, read the example sentence, read the definition, discuss, create an example sentence of your own, and then move on. And that's it for day one. On day two, just present the front of the flashcard to your child first of all. So let them have a look at this, see if it jogs their memory, and they can tell you what the word means. They don't need to say the definition verbatim, like word for word. Actually, if they can paraphrase it and put it in their own words, that's even better, because it means that they have understood it and then can process it and put it in their own words. If they can't remember the meaning of the words, that is fine. That's why we do this on several different days. So try first to give them a clue by reading the example sentence. And that's why example sentences are important if you're making your own flashcards as well. So read the example sentence, see if they can get the definition. If not, don't worry, just read it to them, discuss, come up with a new example sentence, and then go on to the other cards for that day. So that's all you're going to do on day two. You might want to introduce one or two other cards, but remember it's about quality, not quantity. So if your child can cope, then do more. If not, just keep it to a couple of cards a day, and then you can add from there. Now on days 3 and 4, you're actually going to leave the words that you've already done. So maybe move on to some other words, or you can try and spot the words that you've discussed earlier in the week in the world around you. So maybe your child sees an opportunity to use those words, or they notice that word coming up in a book or on TV, and just discuss that as the week goes on. But on days 3 and 4, you're not going to worry about the cards you've already done. You're going to leave it because you want it to soak into your child's mind. And that is really good for long-term recall. When you do something repeatedly over a short space of time, then it actually makes people less likely to remember in the long term. You need to just let it set in for a couple of days. Right, so on day 5, you are going to go through all the words you've learnt so far that week. So you can just say the word to your child. Just saying it may bring up the picture in their mind without them having to see the card, but it's fine at this stage if they need to see the flashcard to be able to remember the word. Hopefully at this point they can remember the definition of the word. So you're going to go through a few, and then for the words that have synonyms on them, then you're going to start learning those. So talk about the synonyms. Here we've got arduous, taxing, grueling, and try to use those in example sentences as well. Now on day 6, you're going to go over the original word and see if your child can come up with some of the synonyms. If they come up with their own synonyms, that's fine, but try and get them to remember some of these because these are probably new and challenging words that you've got down here. If you're making your own flashcards, then you can add synonyms to the flashcards on this day. Now, one thing I wanted to show to you and explain on the Wordia flashcards, which is important when you're doing all of them, is these collocations. So collocations are pairings of words or word groupings that are commonly used together. So the card that I've got right now is flurry, and we have the collocations of snow, of excitement, of activity. So often when we're using the word flurry, we will say there was a flurry of snow, there was a flurry of activity. You get the point. So when your child is coming up with example sentences during the week, these collocations can be used as a prompt. So they may come up with a sentence that uses a flurry of excitement. And what you don't want to do with collocations is just learn them so that your child just lists them off. You want to make sure that they can actually use them. These are there so that when your child comes to use these words in everyday language, they're using them correctly. So it's not about drills, it's just about inspiring sentences for these ones. Now, once you get to hopefully the end of the week where your child is able to recall the meaning of the word, use the word confidently in a sentence, and hopefully without prompting, so without the image here, then you get to reward yourself in a way by taking the card off, and you can create a little done pile. You might want to get a little plastic pocket or an envelope to put the card in, or you can have some little sections in the box that the cards come in, so you can have a done section and a to-do section over here in your box. So that's quite a nice treat to put them to the side, but you have to remember to come back to these words regularly. So go to the bottom of your done pile on a regular basis, maybe leave it a couple of weeks after you've done the word the first time, and then check that your child still knows those definitions from the first time. They can't be expected to remember everything in the long term. It's going to need some revision. And don't forget that if you have the Wordia flashcards, then all flashcard purchases come with online games for revision, so you can select the words that you want to revise at that time, or you can just revise all of them, play some games, compete against some other children, so that they are ingrained in your memory. And remember, long term, if you feel like your child has mastered these, then there are usually lots of synonyms. This one doesn't have synonyms, but there should be lots of synonyms that they can cover and start to remember the meaning of. So if you really want to challenge them, a couple of weeks later, you may say, okay, what's the meaning of ostentatious? So it doesn't come with its own card, but if your child can associate it with that card, then thankfully they can remember the meanings of these as well.